All right, YouTube, this Detroit's HPTV coming to you out of Detroit. We're gonna talk about Letitia James again. Letitia James, she's facing a huge lawsuit. And for guess what? Violating Donald Trump's rights. Now, how do you do that, you may say? Considering, how they've been trying to prosecute Donald Trump for different things. Well, you know how they always use the race card? I'm a black woman, so this what this is. When I'm black, you know how they race bait sometimes. Now I'm not saying that there ain't cases of that, but these politicians and these people that made a career out of playing the race card to the detriment of society at large, for sure. And that's what we're gonna deal with. People don't like to see people held accountable or whatever, but these are the people that's supposed to hold us accountable. DAs, attorney generals. Come on now. They supposed to hold us accountable. But their behavior shows, you know what I mean, that they still possess the pettiness of the average everyday citizen. So they gotta be watched. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm finna do a reaction to Melanie King, and she's a conservative sister. She be having some good shows, but she got a good uh, take on how Letitia James was acting as it relates to prosecuting Donald Trump. It's interesting. Take a look at it. This for fair use under the 1976 Copyright Act for educational purposes and commentary. Check us out.
Administration, which is too male, too pale, and too stale. Donald Trump has grounds to sue Letitia James. Big Letty. Yes, guys, I'm exploring this today because recently on Fox, the guest there actually made these claims and gave an argument to it. And this article here actually gets into it. But rather than read that first, I'm going to actually show you the news segment. And then I also have something else. I actually have the original place that he actually wrote this. It was republished recently. It was originally, I think he originally talked about it in 2018 or something like that. I can't remember, but we're going to go into it right now.
Do you think that Donald Trump should sue New York Attorney General Letitia James, and on what grounds?
I think she should. I saw an interesting little comment of hers I not seen before the other day. She said when she was running for Attorney General that she wants to fight an administration that's too male, too pale, and too stale. Now, you can talk about stale ideas, that's fine, but too male and too pale, that constitutes basically sex and race discrimination. Oh. So I think what President Trump ought to do is sue her on the basis of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. Her office gets federal money, in fact, $311 million approximately for various subsidies for law enforcement activity. So the federal money is flowing into her office, and if she is engaged in that kind of sexual and racial discrimination and that kind of language, I think she's wide open to exposure on the 64 Civil Rights Act. Donald J. Trump should sue Letitia James on the basis of.
Always stay in sync with your business with the QuickBooks mobile app. Seamlessly track your spending and easily send invoices on the go.
Civil rights.
Have you?
That's crazy, guys. That is insane. Like, it's not crazy to do it, but it's amazing when they try to use these things today. We know in this woke culture where everything, if you are not a woman of color or a non-binary, queer, gay, lesbian, trans woman, them, they, of color, of any kind of color, then you can be crucified. You can be canceled. Anything you have to say is shut down because you're part of the patriarchy. You're part of the problem. You're what's wrong. You, the average American, you need to pay for everything that your forefathers have done. And we as Black people, me as a Black woman, I am a permanent victim. I can't do anything on my own. There's always a white man who has his foot on my neck and I just can't get through. But oh my, how the tables have turned. See, if you want equality, you need to exercise it across the board. Imagine saying stale, pale, and male Imagine if that was reversed and said about a Black woman, said about her. This is Letitia James, who couldn't even take people booing her in the house of God. Suddenly, this is a woman of God and cares what God is saying to her. But no, this same woman who was caught up. I did a video a couple days ago, and I will be exploring that more, guys. I've been doing some investigations on that. But it basically, she actually did the same thing that she accused Donald Trump of doing. And my biggest thing is, I am tired of these corrupt politicians. I'm tired of do as I say and not do as I do. I'm tired of them canceling everyone. This cancel culture. I'm tired of this wokeness. I'm tired of everything having to be politically correct. And a lot of this stuff that they claim that is for Black and brown people, it's killing our communities. They give us these token things, and they preach these things every 4 years when they wanted to get elected. They do a few things and kind of make noise, but it really doesn't make any change or do anything different for our communities. But let's take a look at the actual article on this. So it says here, Donald Trump has grounds to sue a New York Attorney General, Letitia James, for violating the former president's civil rights, according to Fox News contributor. DeRoy Murdoch, a political commentator and regular guest on a conservative news channel, made the remark after a New York appeals court agreed to delay the collection of Trump's $454 million civil fraud penalty stemming from James' lawsuit. The former president was told to pay a bond of $175 million within 10 days, instead, while he appeals the court's decision. In February, Judge Arthur Engoron ruled that Trump had filed a fraudulent statement, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Murdoch repeated suggestions he made in an article in the American Spectator that Trump should sue James over comments she made in 2018. Okay, so the comments were made in 2018. That's not when his article was written. While running for New York State Attorney General, she had said she intended to stand up to the too male, too pale, too stale Trump administration.
Administration, which is too male, too pale, and too stale. Too male, too pale, and too stale. Too male, too pale, and too stale. And we will not go away silently. We will not be silent to stand up to an administration.
I don't know about the rest of y'all, but that's her policy. That he too male, he too pale, he too stale. Like, not running on bettering the communities. What? You got a vendetta? This what got you violating the man's 8th Amendment and tampering with elections? Come on now.
Which is too male, too pale, and too stale. Too male, too pale, and too stale. Too male, too pale, and too stale. And we will not go away silently. We will not be silent to stand up.
So as you can see there, Letitia was on one right there. Big Letty, she was feeling herself. Big Sis was going off. And then she even got the crowd to chant. Wasn't this inciting hate speech? Shouldn't she be liable for this? Inciting this type of speech to the crowd, actually going against, this is racist, and this is, what is this, misandrous? What they want to talk about, misogyny? So absolutely, you're a politician, and this is what you campaign on, not for see, it's a difference if they're talking about actually elevating voices, as they say, that are female or who are of color. That's one thing, but she's actually saying she wants to destroy anybody who has a peen, and anybody whose color is white. Anybody who does not identify with something that's rainbow. I'm surprised she didn't say straight, because then we will have that as well to add to this litigation. But let's go back to the article. Trump has also frequently accused James, who was Black, of conducting a racist and politically motivated investigation into him. Writing in the American Spectator, Murdoch suggested that former president should sue James as what the hell does Trump have to lose? He immediately should file a federal complaint and demand justice under the American Keystone civil rights law. To see a white male multi-billionaire sue a Black female attorney general to secure his civil rights will be the ultimate man bites dog story, Murdoch wrote. For this extraordinary spectacle, America owes a hearty thank you to the New York State's leading despot. I think it's a despot, I think that's it. Attorney General Letitia James. James' office and Trump legal team have been contacted for comment via email. Child, the buttermilk. Murdoch remarks came soon after Trump criticized Fox News for its coverage of the New York civil fraud case. Don't like the way Fox News is reporting Letitia James' election interference scam, Trump wrote on Truth Social on Sunday on the eve of his original deadline to pay the cash bond to stop James from seizing his assets. They don't want to discuss how ridiculous this corrupt judge's fine of $450 million is. It should be zero. The only fraud was the valuation of Mar-a-Lago at $18 million. We're not gonna get into it. Trump is on his, when Trump get on his stuff, he about to go off. But this is not what this story is about. But let's take a look at this really quickly. So this is the original article. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll just kind of breeze through it so you guys can get the gist. Imagine if a white Republican man were on the stump, stand up to the administration that is too femme, too tan, too woke. Actually, that's different. I guess too femme, too tan, because he's saying too woke, which is basically saying too stale, the equivalent of it, which you can do, but you can't say it's something that's too anything that's based on their gender or their race or their sexuality. He might say, perhaps while running against James, a woman, Black, and far left Democrat. That speech would doom his campaign as it vanished beneath an avalanche of headlines and ex-posts calling him sexist and racist. He probably would apologize and then crawl into a snowdrift until the spring thaw. But James' racist, sexist remarks shouted into a microphone, not whispered into a martini glass, caused her no political damage. We know how this works. You guys know how it works. Indeed, she was elected Attorney General of the Empire State. James' anti-white bigotry detonates a core tenet of critical race theory, namely that Blacks are incapable of racism because they lack power over omnipotent whites. This self-enfeebling argument collapses in the face of James's enormous police power, vast government resources, and ability to impoverish and imprison people she hates, not least a former president of the United States. James labors mightily to get Trump, which she promised to do in a preemptive injustice that should get her disbarred. James' political biases are on full display as she licks her chops in lust after the real estate and financial holdings of Donald J. Trump. These could fall into her hands if Trump cannot pay $175 million bond by April 4th. Go over this. We're going to go... As Trump slips through James' slithery tentacles, he should file an emergency motion in federal court today and request a preliminary injunction to halt of all of James' efforts to snatch his property, if not quash her entire case. Trump's attorneys should invoke the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and justifiably accuse James of discriminating against him on the basis of sex and race. President Lyndon Baines Johnson signed this landmark legislation to shield Americans from hateful state laws and bigoted state officials. The act was designed to guard citizens from prejudiced mayors, governors, and yes, attorney generals who would deploy local and state laws to deny them their rights. The Title 6, 42 U.S. Code, blah, blah, blah. The landmark law states no person in the United States shall, on the ground of race, color, or national origin be excluded from participation and be denied the benefits or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. And I wonder if there's any state laws that can be added to that she actually broke by doing this. That does he have? I believe not only that, she did this publicly. Like, there's a lot of layers that can be explored here, but this is turning what, do civil rights laws needed in general? Yes. But what we're talking about here is that she actually violated them. And we see this all over social media. We see this everywhere, where they feel as though if you are biologically born a male, you are allowed to be discriminated against. If you are biologically born white, then you are allowed to be discriminated against. And honestly, nowadays, if you identify, you have to identify now. If you identify as straight, then you can be discriminated against. If you identify as the gender you were born, the sex you were born, you can be discriminated against because you don't have the right victimization points. They can use anything that they want to on social media or anywhere else to completely tear you apart. And now we see the government now is stepping in and trying to do the same thing to basically make the political enemies pay. And that's what we see with this. So let me keep going. This is just talking about why she can be sued, kind of like the different things about it. But here it is. Engaging in discrimination based on sex and race should play no part in any prosecutor's office or taxpayer funding from any level, including the nearly $250 million federal dollars that Attorney General James' office has enjoyed for the past 5 years, says Adam Andrzejewski, founder and CEO of Open the Books, which identified these subsidies. James might respond that this money was earmarked to fight Medicare-related crimes. Never mind, money is fungible, and $234 million flowed into her office thanks to federal taxpayers. Okay, so let's keep going. James will have a much tougher time hiding from the largesse that the U.S. Department of Justice paid her office for clearly non-medical matters. Let me go back up because I actually skipped over that. I guess it is important. As for receiving federal financial assistance, the OAG has collected at least $234,723,400 blah 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 since 2019, all on James's watch. The sum was from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, Medicaid Fraud Control Units, the control units. These funds were dedicated to investigate and prosecute Medicaid provider fraud, as well as patient abuse and neglect in health facilities and board and care facilities, and the Medicaid beneficiaries in non-institutional or other settings. So that's where the money came from for the federal funding that she actually has received from the government. It says James will have a much tougher time hiding these largesse from the U.S. Department of Justice, that the U.S. Department of Justice paid her office for clearly non-medical matters. So right here, it looks like she used a lot of the money for things that have nothing to do. Okay, these are the different awards that she was paid for these things, but we need to investigate her office, just like Big Fanny Pack receiving these grants and receiving money and claimed it was for one thing that she needed to hire 55 different attorney generals to work in the office, when the majority of that, she did not do that. And then she wanted to use it to do the backlog of cases from COVID and murders and all these other things, when she actually paid the majority of it to her boo thing, her gigolo, big Nathan Wade. That's who that money was spent on, and she never actually told them the truth of how she spent that money. So we need to open the books and the Manhattan District Attorney's office and see, where is this money actually going that was supposed to be for Medicaid? Where was this federal money going? So not only would this lawsuit help open these books, this will go down a rabbit trail, so we can every single cent needs to be accounted for. And if anything over $100 was misspent, those are terms for her to be completely disbarred, for her to lose her office. And that's where we need to go with these things. If these politicians want to keep doing these types of things, well, we're going to return the favor, because this is not your money to play with, ma'am. This is the taxpayers' dollars. No, what they would rather do in New York, as we can see, rather than fund, the community, rather than fund schools, rather than help people who, in the community who need assistance, they rather enrich themselves. They rather pay the bills, billions of dollars, for illegal immigrants because they're trying to get their votes. But we're not going to go into that right now because y'all know your girl can go. The Trump-hating Letitia James runs the OAG, which has received at least $311,779,389 in federal taxpayer funds, according to these two sources alone. These basic facts throw the Civil Rights Act of 1964 like a net over James and her state agency. What the hell does Trump have to lose? He immediately should file a federal complaint and demand justice under America's keystone civil rights law. To see a white male multi-billionaire sue a black female attorney to secure his civil rights will be the ultimate man bites dog, which I already said. For the extraordinary spectacle, America owes a hearty thank you to New York State's leading despot, Attorney General Letitia James. So I thought you guys would enjoy that. I think we're sitting on something here. All the polls show that Trump.
Well, I'm in there. That's Melanie King. I'm gonna put the rest of her video in the community section. But that's interesting take on it. You know what I mean? Because I told you before, we're getting to the point where we're gonna be dealing with people based on laws and our understanding of what the law is, what our rights are, Constitution. See what they do in the legislature. But this is interesting take on it. Because she can say that, but he can't say it. You know what I mean? And the main thing is election interference. You cannot alter or take a right for the people to vote for who they want to vote for. Again, get this book. Real good book. It's worth it. And sanity of Detroit. Salute to our patriots as usual. Keep your eye on the swivel. Like, share, and subscribe. Peace.